KC Joyner right here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. And I know, KC, there's a lot to dive into in this game last night, but when you look back at this game and ask how come the Eagles are sitting at 1-1 today, what is the number one reason you would say they lost that game last night?
I still don't understand why they didn't try and run the football more often. They were having a lot of success with it early on, and it just seemed that they decided, even though they have all the receiving injuries, and they got interested in the quarterback, they're still like, yeah, we're just going to throw the ball a ton, even though it's not working. If you don't pound your head against the wall, I think they run the ball a lot better and win.
Yeah, Doug talked about it today, and he kind of like the Goddard thing seemed like that's what changed their thing. Now, they ran the ball, not a great per carry. I mean, 21 times, I don't know, like 40 yards, 49 yards. But he did kind of admit that we kind of got away from it because of the Goddard thing. Goddard getting hurt kind of changed their game plan, it sounded like. So are you buying that as a reason?
I'm only sort of buying that, but when I'm grading out the tape, I'm seeing Seumalo having another terrible game. He accounted for nearly half of the bad running plays that they had yesterday, so they've got big problems with him as their blocker. But if you take him out of the equation, their blocking was really good most of the time last night. I know they're not getting a ton of yards, but you got to keep it going. And not only that, I would tell the running backs, I'm watching the tape and I'm looking at the running backs, they're doing a lot of, not quite to Le'Veon Bell extent, but you can see they're trying to read against this defense. And as I'm watching that, I'm going to butt my head almost against the screen going, you can't do reads against this speed defense. You don't want to sit there and read. Get your butt upfield and try and get some yards. So I would tell them to do that as well.
Casey, I'm wondering about your evaluation of Miles Sanders, specifically as he's hitting the hole, his vision. It does look to the naked eye a little bit that he's kind of got that typical rookie jitterbug style of dancing around a little bit. Do you see that as well? Early on, I was on a short yardage play. I want to say it was his second carry of the game, or it was very early on. They had a short yardage play, and he hit the hole. And mind you, there's a safety coming up, or a corner coming up from the secondary is going to be there, but he's got a play there. He can just put his head down and go get the first down. Instead, he tried to dance, and then that safety or corner came up and made the tackle on him. He was trying to hit a home run when he should have been just trying to hit a single, and I saw that a few times last night where he looks like, hey, I need to go make the big play. When the big play's there, go get it, but there are times when you just need to put your head down and go get 4 and 5 yards, and he did more of that as the game progressed, but I would still think they would need to coach him up on getting him out of trying to hit home runs on singles who don't think they're there.
What do you think the game plan was, or the backup plan, I should say, once the news of Dallas Goedert comes down that he's not playing? Obviously, it was a consensus really with everyone that they were going to do a lot of 12 personnel going into the game, which means a lot of Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz on the field at the same time. Maybe we see the run game a little bit more if that's the case. What are your thoughts on how Doug Peterson and the coaching staff reacted and game planned and adjusted to the news of all those injuries at key spots on offense?
Okay, you can't go 12. Fine, go an unbalanced line. you can bring in another offensive lineman and go 12 if you want to and via that way. I mean, it's an odd way to do it, but if you want to power the team, you can just bring in another offensive lineman and say, fine, we'll play him there, and you're not going to run him out and things, but that's not what you're looking to do anyway. You're trying to powerhouse that defensive front. I thought, we talked last week that Atlanta was very good at defeating, they like a one gap and getting one-on-one situations. I thought Philadelphia did very well in most of their one-on-one blocking situations. Again, Seumalo being the exception. He had a terrible game for the second week in a row. But I'm looking at them going, they're doing it that well. So if you're doing it that well, fine, go ahead and put the tackle in there and say, we'll just play some unbalance because, yeah, you might not be able to put that person out in the passing game, but that's not what you're trying to do in those plays anyway.
KC Joyner breaking down Eagles and Falcons. We'll look at week 2 in just a minute. KC, defensively, Jim Schwartz, he doesn't blitz a lot, but he set a lot of pressure. In the end, what did you think of the Eagles' defensive game plan against that Falcons team?
They were dominating again in the offensive line when it came to the running game. I mean, they did in week 1. We talked about that last week. And in this game, they did the same thing. They were winning point-of-attack blocks all over the place. Luke Stalker got beat consistently as we thought he would. The Eagles tight ends the Falcons tight ends couldn't block worth a darn yesterday. So, I mean, I think that they said, we're going to stop the run with our front seven, and we can go ahead and blitz because we know we don't have to respect their ground game. So I like the idea of being more aggressive in those situations.
Yeah, and real quick, in the secondary, we keep seeing them get beat on the big play. We saw it last week in Washington. Darby got beat a couple times. Matt Ryan wasn't on his game. A couple of big plays were missed because Ryan's inaccuracy. But is that a concern moving forward? Darby got beat a couple of times. They keep getting beat over the top, it looks like, 2 weeks in a row.
They do, and it's troubling because on the one play when Darby gets beat by Calvin Ridley, the safety's supposed to be giving him help. And I looked at the play as best I can see off of the television footage. You won't be able to see really till you get all 22. But on the television footage, it doesn't look like the safety should have bid up. He just got over late. Yeah. And if he gets help, maybe he doesn't get beat in that play. So I hold him responsible some, but, man, give him some safety help. Maybe that's an incompletion.
Different game in your opinion if the Eagles aren't banged up, if Jackson and Alshon play?
Yeah, I think it's a very different game if Jackson if they keep the receiving core healthy and they can. But again, I don't know why they didn't try and run the ball more when the receiving core did get banged up. But if those two play, I think the way they were getting pressure on Ryan, because Ryan was making all kinds of ill-advised passes, and if they could have kept that pressure up and they have a full offense, I think the Eagles easily win that game.
Casey, I'm going to ask you to go back a little bit to last year, maybe even 2017, and then these two games. Do you see a trend of Carson Wentz in the first quarter, first half, maybe looking to make the bigger play instead of taking what the defense gives, maybe taking an outlet or a dump off when it's there, and then in the second half kind of getting his rhythm better by taking what the defense gives? I
do entirely. I keep thinking back to this famous NFL Films clip where Mike Holmgren is telling a very young Brett Favre, can you stop throwing the fastballs? Can you stop throwing these crazy passes? Let's calm down and get into the game. I definitely think that's the thing. And the thing you might want to do as a coach, though, if you know that he wants to go vertical, fine. If you've got a special player, you've got a trick player, you've got something that can let him throw that fastball and let him go attack the defense, give him a play or two like that and tell him either hit the completion or throw it incomplete. But allow him to get into some sort of a groove, do something maybe to meet him part way. But I think that Wentz just sometimes says, I'm going to go vertical even if it's not there early on, and you just can't do that. This offense is not set up for that.
All right, that's a look at Eagles and Falcons, a little deeper look with KC Joyner. Let's get into week number 2 and get his thoughts on these games and see what happened. San Francisco on the road beats Cincinnati 41-17. Are the 49ers for real? I mean, Cincinnati put up a fight on the road last week, and then they come home and get blitzed.
The 49ers are for real. Garoppolo, we keep forgetting how much of a hype he had coming into last year, and he is that good of a quarterback. They've got that good of a passing game. The thing is their running game still isn't where it should be. They get their run blocking where it should be, that's going to be an even more dangerous club.
Chargers, some banged-up Chargers at the Lions. They'll be in Philly this week. Detroit, they had a game. They got to be 2-0 right now. They got to be kicking themselves for tying that game last week. But was this an impressive win against the Chargers at home?
Very impressive win. The Lions defense is much stronger than people give it credit for. I think they are going to be able to get back to their ground game approach they wanted to. And the Chargers, as mentioned, they're banged up, and I think that they're going to have some problems until they get healthy in that secondary, because that's a problem for them.
Minnesota on the road at Green Bay. Green Bay got out early. Minnesota tried to come back. An awful throw by Cousins late in that game, but Green Bay holds on. They're 2-0.
They are, and Minnesota, it is a concern because now it looks like they're starting to game plan themselves. They're trying to put the same kind of game plan for Cousins as they did when they had Case Keenum there, which is to say, don't lose the game for us. You didn't pay that kind of money for that quarterback to not do that. So I think they need to decide if they're going to let him air it out or not, and I think it's going to really impact who they are.
Luck had never beaten the Titans. Now the Colts go on the road and beat Tennessee, and the Titans scored 40 last week. They can only get 17 this week at home.
The Colts they're a much better team overall. They used to be an Andrew Luck team, and they build everything around him, and he's kind of the eraser where we've got a mistake here, we've got to make sure he would be able to erase it with his talents and things. Now they've built a really strong defense. They've got the makings of, right now, they're blocking like one of maybe the best offensive line in the league, and if they keep doing like that and then play strong defense, I think they still can make the playoffs.
All right, New England, they took care of business.
Miami 0-16. I think the commissioner may say, and I'm serious about this, I think the commissioner may need to step into Miami and say, you cannot do this. You have to try harder than you're trying, and if you don't, we're going to do something to your team. But we'll take away that first-round pick if you guys don't start playing harder. And I'm dead serious about that.
Probably should have said something before they traded away Tunsil.
Yeah, right? That's going to be something to watch all season. Buffalo, 2-0 on the road. They beat the Giants. Giants, all sorts of issues on offense. But are the Bills for real?
The Bills are for real. They're like they were a couple years ago, where a team they got to play a game plan sort of game. You've got to play a certain type of contest. But Josh Allen keeps finding ways to make big plays. Sometimes it's vertical passing. A lot of times it's running. And if he ever gets to a point where he could be a consistent player rather than just a streaky player, they'll be even more dangerous.
Seattle at Pittsburgh. We know that the Steelers are out with Ben Roethlisberger, but you got Seattle with an impressive road victory, and the Steelers are in some trouble.
Steelers are in real big trouble. Connor's also hurt. By the way, though, I like Mason Rudolph. He looked really good yesterday, the backup quarterback. I don't think they're going to do very well this year. I think they probably finish with a sub-500 record if things don't really pick up for them, because they got to go to San Francisco next week. But Mason Rudolph's going to be a good quarterback in the future for that club.
Dallas impressive again, slow start, but then really dominated Washington in the second half.
They did. Their defense is starting to find a groove. Washington's offensive line still, again, it's a big problem. Don't like the fact that Cowboys weren't consistent the whole contest, but that new offensive scheme from Kellen Moore, that's dangerous. Now they're a complete offense and complete defense. This is a Super Bowl contender.
All right, Arizona, Baltimore. Baltimore, they've been impressive twice, but both against inferior opponents. So what do we think of the Ravens?
I like the idea that you've got to beat the bad teams too. So I like the idea that they're beating the bad teams. I still am not convinced about Lamar Jackson. People are seeing all the touchdown passes, saying how great he is. And again, like you said, it's against bad competition. It's against subpar coverage, and I want to see what he does against strong coverage. Because if they start taking away those easy touchdown passes, and he's got to put together drives, I think it's going to be a tougher stretch for him.
Jacksonville goes to Houston. They fight. It's an interdivision. Houston claws out with a win. I don't know what we think of Jacksonville now at 0-2, but Houston, a much-needed win because they didn't want to go to 0-2.
No, Houston didn't want to go to 0-2. In Houston, I like what they've got in the backfield and with the running game. I think Deshaun Watson's capable of doing a lot better than he did yesterday, and they can make some big plays for Jacksonville's defense. But Jacksonville, Gardner Minshew can do certain things on offense. I still don't understand on that last play when they went for two, why you give it to Fournette when Minshew's been the guy that was driving you all the way down the field, make it a two-way read or something for him. So I kind of a head scratcher there by Jacksonville.
Oakland up 10. Kansas City comes storming back 28-10. And the Chiefs look impressive on the road again.
The Chiefs are, I said coming into the season that I thought that they wouldn't be scoring quite as many points because they would try and be more protect their defense and such. They don't need to protect their defense. Their defense is playing pretty darn well. And if they don't have to protect their defense, they can still be aggressive on offense and stay out of shootout games, because they were undefeated when they didn't have a shootout game last year. They went 5-4 when they had shootouts. So if they can avoid shootouts, this team is going to win 14 games.
Weird ending in Chicago with the spot and all what happened in that game, but Fangio against his former team, and Nagy gets the better of them 16-14. Bears needed that win on the road.
They did, and the thing about the Bears is they've got this fantastic defense. They've got the makings of a good offense. They've got Robinson. They've got good running backs. Trubisky's a better quarterback than he's been showing, but if they can't get that offense going, there's 2 straight weeks that offense has laid an egg. If they can't get it going, that's a team that goes 10-6, 11-5, is one and done in the playoffs at best. So they need to get that offense going, or else this team that could be a Super Bowl contender is going to be doing nothing.
All right, Saints lose on the road. They lose their quarterback. They got to go to Bridgewater. So thoughts on them moving forward with Bridgewater. But Rams impressive at home. And it's funny, we were talking about before, Casey. I don't know what is it about the Rams when you say, man, they're good, but you don't say they're good because of Goff. But are they good because why are they good offensively?
They're good offensively right now, but they're surviving their offensive line. Their offensive line has not been playing well. They lost a player yesterday. Their offensive line needs to get more consistent. That's what they used to be, so they're having to work around that on offense. And for New Orleans, they said coming into the season, or they've been intimating, we want to be more of a run-heavy team, We don't want to have pass ball maybe more than 500-plus times or 525, something like that. Well, you got what you wished for, and now you're going to be running the ball that often, and we'll see if your Kamara and Murray can do it for you, because I don't think that Teddy Bridgewater is going to be able to get out of that offense as Drew Brees did.
All right, tonight you got Cleveland and the Jets. Trevor Simeon's going to be the quarterback. You got the Browns coming off a disappointing loss. You got the Jets coming off a game where they blew a 16-point lead. But both these teams, they both had some hopes, more probably in Cleveland than in the Jets. However, one of them is going to be 0-2.
If Cleveland goes 0-2, it's a disaster for them, not just because they went 0-2, but because the Jets have terrible problems on defense right now. They're missing Mosley, missing Quentin Williams. I mean, they're going to be weak in their front seven. Cleveland should go in there talent-wise and win this game. If not handle it, they should win it 27-14, something like that. They should have a pretty solid victory. If they lose this contest, then you're going to see what you saw at the end of last week's game all the way through their season, where they're beginning to question themselves and that could fall apart. So they need it more than the Jets do.
KC Joyner's back on Friday as we'll get you ready for Eagles and Lions and all the week 3 action. It starts to move too fast, man. We're going to be at week 3, Eagles, Lions, Friday at 5:15. KC Joyner will be back on the Sports Bash, and he, like all guests, appear via the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. All right, pal, we'll talk to you Friday.
Appreciate it.